Thank you so much. Thank you very much for joining us 1:30 today, nice and on time. Welcome to the Deal Finder Corner. So this is your weekly property talk show brought to you by Property Filter, hosted by myself, Guillaume Black, your favorite Frenchman, the CEO and co-founder at Property Filter. And as you know, it's the UK's highest rated platform to find deals. And we are on a mission to empower our property investor and deal sourcer members to find another 1,000 deals this year, like they did last year, thanks to the Property Filter blueprint. So the purpose with your Deal Finder Corner is really to give you more and the best of the available resources by inviting expert guests who will share with you the latest and most current strategies, tactics, and secrets about what actually works right now in terms of finding, making deals, and the reality of systemizing and running a high-performance business in property. So it really is my pleasure today to introduce to you my good friend Rob Stewart on today's Deal Finder Corner. So you'll see Rob is a dynamic trainer and seasoned investor, not only property investor, but on covering a wide range of business acumen and investment, with a background as an ex-RAF pilot with 12 years as a non-conformist who chose to leave Cambridge University. Rob is committed to help you unlock your full potential and craft a rewarding life and business. He always, speaking with him, I always resonate with this, where he always believes that happiness, fulfillment, and potential comes from within. And you'll have the ability and choice to put yourself in the right environment, in a state of your own, where you can ultimately achieve your unique desire. So I'm very much looking forward to welcome and hand over to Rob in a minute and hear more about his talk. So what can you expect from today's talk? So Rob is going to talk about the cash machine, or you can learn the one type of property that can generate well over £3,000 every month on autopilot, the unfair advantage on how you can find and land yourself, your first property unicorn deal within 5 minutes. And then we talk about infinite scaling and the secrets of the super wealthy use to structure their own unicorn deals to make sure they never make or use their own funds again. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing more about Rob's talk today. So without further ado, I'll be handing over to Rob. Please give Rob a massive virtual Property Filter massive virtual welcome. Thank you.
What an intro. Thank you so much for that. Right, let me grab the screen. Amazing to see so many people here this afternoon. Thanks for spending the afternoon with me. I'm not really sure the format of how this usually works. I'm just going to kind of run it as I've got a slide deck, which is a slightly old slide deck. It's kind of for one of my old webinars. I'm going to go through it, use that as a template. But I'm very happy to to take questions as we go through. If I think it's appropriate that we can talk about those questions, and then I will stop and have a chat about them. So if we're happy to put questions in the chat box as we go through, I'm very happy to answer them as we go through. It's a little bit salesy, the slide deck, so apologies for that. I'll skip over some of the more salesy bits because really I just want to get as interactive as possible with everybody. But let's crack on. So look, the aim of this presentation is really talk to you about a concept that I came up with to kind of clarify a concept that I've been investing in for really 10 years now. But it was to put a wrapper around it, and that is to find what I call property unicorns, right? I'll define what a property unicorn is. But this presentation is designed to help you find and land your first high cash flowing property unicorn deal within the next 90 days for sure, whatever. I just want to explain to you what they are, how you can find them, and how you can structure them, and also how you can do that without using your own cash. Now, of course, if you've got your own cash, it's easier, but I always start from the point of how can I buy this property or acquire this property without using my cash, okay, to make those resources go further. And I'm going to talk to you the methodologies that I use to do that. So the goal, or my goal for you, is teach you the fastest way to build a hyper profitable property business without having to have mountains of cash in the bank, without having to flog yourself on the networking circuit and posting 5 times a day on social media or viewing 100 times a month, right? So I want to ask everybody right now, who here, right, is struggling to find high cash flowing properties in the current environment of high interest rates, high anti-landlord tax, and changes in legislative and regulatory regimes? Is that a problem for people? Just give me a yes, yes, yes. Yeah, and so this is why the concept of property unicorns was bought. I'm also interested to ask, right, because I've been around the industry long enough. I've been around the training industry in various guises for over 10 years now. And lots of people talk about things like no money deals. They talk about raising joint venture finance. Who enjoys flogging themselves on Facebook 10 times a day, going Facebook Live, Instagram, all that sort of stuff, and seeing 100 properties every month, right? Who enjoys doing that? No, perfect. So who would like strategies to be able to find properties, buy them, right, and generate a load of cash flow without having to do those things? Yes, this is a great audience we've got. Fantastic. What an engaged audience. Right. So how do we do it? So it's with this concept called a property unicorn. That is me in my finer days with a glorious mane of hair. Let's go. I'm going to go through some deals that I've done, talk you through them, structure them, and I'm also going to define what this property unicorn is. So here is I was about to say my latest transaction. We completed on another one last Friday. So this is last year's transaction. Just so you know, my aim is to buy one unicorn a year. That's it, right? One property. I know a lot of people go quantity. I need to always be buying, buying, buying. For me, it's all about quality, not quantity. So I'm out there looking for the very best deals on and off market in my very defined local area with an aim of adding one a year to the portfolio. That's it. I want it as stress-free as possible. So this is a property we bought last year in Chester, middle of Chester, just outside the city walls. If anybody knows, it's a Roman town. This is actually a Georgian townhouse. It's a mixed-use building. I call this the urban gold mine. So I've got a strategy I teach called the urban gold mine, which is generally mixed-use properties, which is four or more self-contained units. Generally, I like to go 5+ self-contained units in one property. At the bottom of this, we've got when I bought it was an empty restaurant, about 2,000 square foot of restaurant space. And above, we've got 4 flats, 2 on the first floor, 2 on the second floor. Beautiful Georgian interior. And we bought this for £345,000 last year. I actually, believe it or not, I found this on Property Filter. So this is a Property Filter success story. You can see that it was listed initially for $450,000. So we negotiated a significant discount on that purchase price. Now, one of the reasons that we're able to buy it so cheaply was because the retail unit was empty, okay? And because in the flat, 3 of the 4 flats have tenants who've been in there since the 90s. And their ASTs, their tenancies, were super low in terms of rent. They were paying £300 a month, and the market rent for a 1-bed in Chester is about £700. Interestingly, both the old landlord who was selling and the tenants thought they were on protected tenancies, which wasn't the case. They were on ASTs, which could be changed straight away. But it put off everybody else from buying it. So a very quick £500 with a solicitor confirmed that they were genuine ASDs that we could change the rent on as we wanted. But we used it as leverage to buy this thing for £345,000. Now, we bought it last year. We did a very quick strip out and white box of the retail unit. The flats themselves, 2 of them we've not touched, tenants still there. One of them, tenant very sadly died very quickly after we bought it. So we had 2 flats which we refurbed and we're now using on Airbnb, and they're bringing in about £1,000 to £1,500 net a month. I got this valued for a portfolio finance facility to buy the one we've just completed on in November last year, when we still had a load of works left to do, and they valued it at 603,872. So we had put about 70 grand in, so about 420 in. Nothing stressful, no structural, no planning, just light cosmetic and a strip out, and we boosted it from 420 to 603,000. Okay, so who would like the idea of being able to add 180, 200,000 pound plus in value without doing anything complex, without having to go through planning, without having to do any conversion? Just take a paintbrush, right, and a pot of paint, make it look pretty, and strip out a retail unit. Hell yes, right? That is the way that we like to do property. Simple is where we're at. Okay, so that's an example of a property unicorn. So this is what we're going to cover during the session. Secret 1, I'm going to talk to you about the property cash machine, which is how we can effectively create guaranteed income streams from property on autopilot, which means we don't have to worry about management, we don't have to worry about voids, we don't have to worry about arrears or maintenance. Just clicks in every single month, right? It's a beautiful thing to have. I'm going to talk about the unfair advantage, which is how you can find your first unicorn. So I'm going to show you how you can do that on Property Filter. Okay, fantastic platform that's going to give you the tools and the suites that we need to be able to do that. And secret 3, I'm going to talk infinite scale, how we can structure deals so you do not need to use your funds again. Okay, and then at the end, I'm going to give you some pointers to fast growth if you're looking to get going quickly with this, and a plan so you can find your first deal within 90 days. Does that sound good to everybody? We happy with that? Brill. Right. I don't think we need to worry about this. You guys are on fire this afternoon already. I know you're fully focused. Who this is for? Well, look, again, this is an old slide. This is for you guys, right? This is for people who are actually looking to do property properly. Okay, people who are looking to build legacy. Property is not get rich quick. I always say it, right? It's get rich very quick, very slowly. We have to have some resources, money or time. If we don't have either, it's going to be challenging. You've got to be into it. You've got to love property, right? I literally breathe and love this stuff. And that's one of the things that keeps me going. It's not for people who are just looking for the latest get rich quick, shiny penny, looking to waste time, people who are lazy, can't be bothered to put the work in. There is nothing simple. I'm not going to guarantee you 10 grand a month in the next 90 days. Just doesn't happen, right? There's going to have to be application, discipline, consistency to actually find these deals. They're not just on every single high street, every single day. You can go and buy them at that price. You're going to have to follow a system and a process to do it. But if you follow that system, you follow that process, you will find them, right? They are out there. I know because I buy them every year. So they must be out there. Then at the end, if you're still here and I've not bored you too much, I'm going to offer you some presents, which is some cool free stuff that you can get, okay, just by staying through the training. So a little bit of a preamble. This is our beautiful Bank of England base rate chart. Look, I know there's a lot of chat at the moment about when's the base rate coming down. It's always going to come down at some point, whether it comes down in June, whether it comes down in August, whether it comes down in 2025. For me, it's never been about where base rate is peaked, it's where it ends up. But fundamentally, right, our generation of property investors have had it easy for the last 15 years. Okay, we've had low interest rates. People have been able to have artificial cash flow while the interest rates are low. Somebody's saying you can't read what you're showing, it's blurry. Is it blurry with anybody else, or can we see it? Just to make sure before we crack on. Can see it? Okay, cool. Sorry, it could be an internet connection, Angela. A bandwidth thing at your end. I'm not sure. I'm not a technical person, I'm afraid. So we've had it easy with cash flow, right, with low interest rates. That changed in 2021, 2022, and it affected a lot of people, especially in the single let market. Not only that, right, we've had a massive change in regulation. Section 24, quick hands up or yes if you've been affected by Section 24 since it came in. Blurry. So if it's blurry, guys, it's probably a bandwidth thing. I'm afraid there's not a lot I can do about it. We'll just have to crack on. So I personally was affected massively by Section 24. And even though they gave us loads of time, right, it still hits you like you weren't expecting it. Renters Reform Bill, you know, potentially being tinkered around, but it's changing a lot of rights, a lot more rights going to residential tenants on ASTs, right? We can all agree, I hope, that this has made it more difficult for residential investors with standard buy-to-let models. It just doesn't work as well in terms of cash flow for landlords, which is why we've seen quite a big exodus of landlords over the last couple of years. Also, I've seen a lot of people been struggling, right? So only when the tide goes out do you discover who's been swimming naked, a famous quote by Warren Buffett. A lot of people have been living off cheap debt, off this intravenous line of cheap debt, which has ended, and that's ruined a lot of people's business models and they can't make it work, okay? However, right, whenever something changes, whenever there's adversity, right, there's opportunity as well. And there is huge opportunity right now. I've got a ticking timeline here because this slide deck is probably about a year old. And I said since sort of mid last year, we're in an accumulation phase now for various property types, anything on a commercial valuation. And that does not necessarily mean a commercial property. We have residential types like some HMOs, serviced accommodation units, we can get residential valuations on, right? We are probably troughing in terms of the bottom of the market in the commercial valuation space. And I would suggest we're probably going to be sitting for the next 3, 4, maybe 5 years. Who knows? We don't know. But there's going to be a finite time period where we can accumulate until the market takes off again. So for me right now is a fantastic time to be accumulating property at depressed price points. Disregard what people talk about in the mainstream media. They're always talking about residential market values. When we look at commercial valuations, it's totally different kettle of fish, right? We're in a fantastic time right now to be buying. So I'm filling my boots whilst I can. So that's a little preamble into the macroeconomic climate of where we are. I want to clarify for you what a unicorn is before we go any further. So this is my definition of a property unicorn. A property unicorn is a property that we can add over £100,000 worth of value within 6 months of buying it, so no complex commercial conversions, generate above £3,000 3,000K, that'd be a bit ambitious, 3 grand a month rent roll from. Ideally, no planning or structural changes. Now, there is one caveat with that. So if I can do something on permitted development, I would generally accept permitted development as a unicorn. So we're buying one at the moment with permitted development to turn it into a block of flats. That's fine because it's a box ticking exercise. And you should be able to structure them to buy it with other people's money, right? That's my definition of a unicorn. So with that definition, when we find these properties, we can buy them if we've got no cash. We can buy them without viewing hundreds of duff properties, or without viewing hundreds of duff properties, without flogging yourself on social media, like I've mentioned a couple of times. So that's miserable. And basically, without spending a lot of time being super busy. Now, one of my big bugbears of the training industry is property is made out to be very, very simple, right? We can just get into it. Within 90 days, we can be earning 5 figures a month, right? And quite frankly, there's a load of lies, there's a load of misinformation that's out there on social media, in the forums, in the, the large training groups, all that sort of stuff. And I think, maybe saying their lies is a little bit harsh. I think a lot of people talk about things that worked 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but don't work anymore. Everybody talks about below market value. I think below market value is the most ridiculous metric that anybody can use to assess a property investment. For me, it's all about return on capital, not about below market value. So we have to be careful with what's out there in the industry. And the big trainers, the big gurus, right, when they are trying to tell people what to do, is they have to do it on scale. They have to do things to attract thousands of people through the door every year. So they come up with processes that actually don't work. So there's a lot of people out there doing things that don't work anymore. So they're not finding deals that work. People can't find the money properly because they're looking in the wrong places. They sort of end up working super busy. Anybody here feel ever that they're working super hard for not a lot of return? Give me a quick yes if that's how you ever feel. Yeah. Alan, yes. Tracy, yes. Sunil, yes. Edward, yep, yep. Input, output, always a subject. Yes, it is, for sure. So look, I hate working for no result. I don't mind working hard if you're getting massive results from it, right? That's not what I'm saying. I'm more than happy to work 70 hours a day if you're making £500,000 a year, right? But when you're working 60, 70 hours a week and you're not making anything, that's not what this should be about. So we have to do things differently. The other thing is because there's so many different things out there in the property space, so many strategies, so many different takes on it, it causes procrastination. I've got a YouTube channel. I have a lot of people that follow me on that I chat to when I go live, and they say one of the biggest issues is they're following 20 different people and everybody's saying different things. And because you go into that information sort of gathering phase, when everybody's saying different things, you don't know which way to turn. And therefore end up procrastinating, never actually get started. And that's kind of the worst thing we can do, is get stuck in that information overload phase. So I want to help you get through that. Before I do, right, I would like to just introduce myself one more time. I know I have had an introduction at the beginning. Just give me a couple of minutes so I can set some credibility. So that's me flying a Tornado in 2008. Southport Air Show, I think that is, when I was part of the RAF Roll Demo Display Team. So I spent 10 years in the military flying these things. I left in 2012 at the time with a view of going to work for the commercial airlines. 2012, I actually put my notice in for the Air Force in 2010. Height of the depression, probably is a depression, financial crisis came out, airlines weren't hiring. So I spent loads of money on getting a totally worthless commercial pilot's license, which I couldn't do anything with because nobody in British Airways or anywhere else was employing fast jet pilots who have no experience of flying wide body multi-engine airplanes. So that was a waste of time and money. So I had to work out what to do instead, and decided because my father-in-law at the time had a small property portfolio. He said, look, get into property. It's a good long-term investment. So I took the savings I had and I started in property. So that was 2010. 2007, I did a little bit of dabbling in property when I was still in the Air Force. Didn't make it work. I think I did 2 deals and broke even on both of them on flips. One of them I bought in 2007, just before the financial crisis, and it lost about 20 grand's worth of value. And I sold it when I moved down to RF Valley in Anglesey. So I started properly in 2010 with a single let portfolio, just buying 2 up, 2 downs in the Northwest, buying them cheap, refurbing, refinancing, pulling out the money, going again. And I built up a portfolio of single lets. By 2013, I had enough income coming in to quit my job. After I left the RAF, I actually got a short-term consultancy role in a private defense contractor just to pay the bills. That was lucky because I had to set up a limited company to be a contractor. And so all my income went into that limited company, and that started me off buying property in a limited company. So a lot of the Section 24 stuff I kind of bypassed because I had a limited company with funds in already. So 2013, quit the job, got educated myself and started buying larger HMOs. By 2014, I bought my first unicorn unknowingly, unwittingly, which is a block of 7 flats and 3 retail units. And by 2018, I was doing large commercial conversions and new build developments. And then COVID hit in 2020 when I was on that one in the bottom right was about a 2.8 mil GDV development, which COVID totally trashed and destroyed 2 years worth of my time and life. When the main contractor went bust with it unfinished, I was left holding a £1.5 million development finance loan in lockdown, burning through 15 grand a month in interest. And then when we came out of the first lockdown, I had to try and get subbies in to finish, snag, and we as shareholders made the decision to flog them at cost, knowing that we're probably going to go into a second lockdown in the winter of 2020, which of course we did. And we thought if we didn't get them sold before then, we'd probably have to hold on to them for another year. And at 15 grand a month interest rate, that was going to, probably send the company under. So we flogged them at cost in the summer of 2020, got out with our initial funds intact, which is fantastic, but 2 years worth of no income, basically. So that's when I decided to look at things a little bit differently in property. So the other thing that happened at that time as we came up to COVID is, if I'm honest, I built quite a substantial portfolio. I had about 70 odd tenants in my portfolio, and it was quite a big and became unwieldy. And I found myself with this big portfolio dealing with, I did have managing agents and had a letting agency myself, dealing with tenants not paying the rent, arrears, voids, increased maintenance, builders. Anybody have any problems these days getting builders in? It's like you have a boiler goes, and how long is it till you get a builder in? And if they're going to come in, they're going to charge a lot. Anybody else have those issues right now, kind of getting tradesmen into their properties to keep everything maintained, right? It became an absolute nightmare, and I found myself in this pretty horrible job with then a new build site going under, right? So I was still networking all the time and looking for more money to keep growing, and it felt like I had to grow, right? And build this massive unwieldy portfolio, and it wasn't what property was all about. Let's get to COVID and let's hit a break point, right? So COVID stopped, sat down, locked down, got out of that new build site and looked at my portfolio. Okay, and when I looked at the portfolio, there was something that was super obvious, was the couple of what I call now unicorns were the properties that were performing really well that probably created 80% of my net income, were probably from 20% of my portfolio. Okay. And these were the unicorns. So I made a strategic decision to look at property differently after COVID. And since then, I bought these 4 properties. That's all I've done since COVID. So one a year. We bought one in 2020, 2021. Didn't buy anything in 22, then 23 and 24. Okay. Bought these 4 properties. These 4 properties combined, just 4 of them, create £25,000 per month rent roll. That is gross, right? We've got finance on that. We've got some costs, some utilities in there as well, but 25 grand per month gross from 4 properties, right? And that is, I probably viewed no more than 10 to 15 properties over the last 4 years. Okay, everything else I do, and I do all of it sitting at home, all my appraisals at home, and then just go out and see the ones that I really want and start negotiating based on certain criteria, which I'll run you through in a bit. So that's a little bit about me and my journey. I also have a training company. It's a very small training company. It's just me. I have no staff. I effectively work as a mentor. I have done for 10 years in property in various guises, on stage, running masterminds, and I do everything virtually now through sort of online group coaching programs. So that's just a little bit about me. So the core principle that I want you to take away is, and I think Ray said this, the 80-20 rule is real. Yes, it is. I want you to take away this principle of the Pareto principle, 80-20. Give a quick hands up or say yes if you've heard of the Pareto principle before. See lots of heads nodding. Yeah, it absolutely is real. And that was, genuine research. When I sat in COVID and looked at my portfolio, 20% of the properties were producing 80%. So it just makes sense, right? Get rid of the rest of it, focus on that 20% and buy more of those. And then you go through that, and then you'll probably look at, 5 years, 20% will actually be making 80%. And just you've got to keep this sort of continuous improvement process. I think a lot of people get attached to their investment properties. Like, I bought this, I need to hold it forever. So I actually started selling off all of my own stock, my old stock, my single lets, my HMOs that weren't performing. So after COVID, as the market was going up, I've been selling my old stock into that rising market to basically create a load of equity to buy more of these sort of properties. Now, I know I can't teach you to do that now because we've kind of gone through that phase of the market, but we're now in that accumulation phase. Now, here's what I want you to take away. This is a screenshot from Zero of one of my properties. Now, I don't know if I can zoom in on that. I could probably zoom in on that. Right, that's just every single month. That's one property. That's actually not one of the four. This is one of the other ones of my existing portfolio that I had. 2,860 every month, drops in like clockwork. Okay. This is set and forget. These are on leases. Here's another one. Again, if I zoom in, £5,285.81 dropping in, month out, right? No management, no voids, no utilities, no maintenance. It's all covered by the tenant. This is actually, we've just done a rent review on this one. We've just put it up to 5,800 a month. So this year we got 7.7% rent increase. Last year we got 10% rent increase on a annual lease with Cheshire West and Chester Council. I don't know if you know, they've just raised across the board housing benefit rates, and so therefore this reflects. So this, for me, right, this is the secret to a stress-free life, is setting up your properties so they are set and forget, and you don't have to chase around doing everything else. Who would like just one property that's pumping out 5,800 a month on autopilot every single month? Who would like a property that does that? So honestly, it's so much better than traditional dealing with tenants. Not that I've not got anything against tenants, by the way. It's just much easier working with people who pay the rent every month. So look, I discovered all of this the hard way. You're going to cheat and get the easy way, which I'm going to teach you. Right, I'm just going to go through this. We don't need to focus on this, right? So you don't need to view hundreds of properties every month. You don't need to, by the way, whoever says view hundreds of properties every month and offer on all of them 25% below market value is having a laugh, right? You will trash your reputation in the local area if you do that, because the agents all know each other and they say, look at this joker who's just going around offering 25% on everything. You want to focus on quality, not quantity, right? You don't want to slog the networking circuit. You don't need to, right? Those sort of brand building ways are old, they're dated. You just don't need to do it. Nobody enjoys having a presence, and most people are doing it in the wrong place. So I want you to get out of that red ocean, right? Jump out of that red ocean where you're swimming with the sharks, get into the blue ocean where it's vaguely uncontested, right? Nothing stays uncontested forever because free market dynamics means people are going to come at some point, but we've always got to be agile and make sure we stay in the blue ocean. That's what I want to teach you, right? And then the biggest issue people have to make property hard is they don't buy for cash flow. For me, I view property as a cash flow mechanism, not a long-term store of wealth. I don't really care too much about what happens. Of course, I want it to go up in value, but what I really want is every month it to pump out thousands of pounds worth of income, right? I can't do anything with that legacy wealth that it might be worth in 20, 30 years. I need cash flow now. So a lot of people buy property, they just think about the long term, and you buy property, the income isn't covering the costs and it ends up being a liability. So we have to have cash flow from property. And as I said at the beginning, the property landscape has changed. Look, I got to a stage I just wanted to burn down my portfolio because I was stressed, but we need to get to the stage of being zen with it all. Okay, so to screenshot this, take it down, draw an image of it if you want to. This is my AAA method. This is what I've taught for probably 5-6 years of how you should be looking at approaching property. Now, this is a framework. This is not a strategy. This is a framework that anybody can use to find any sort of property or run any sort of business, whatever your flavor is. But ultimately, you need to be doing three things in property, right? You need to be able to find them and buy them, so acquire them. That's step one. The second thing you need to be able to do is to add value to them. This is so important, right? By adding value, we can then create momentum. So we add value, refinance, create momentum. Thirdly, we have to be able to create asset income, right? If we leverage too much, especially with interest rates where they are, and we can't get the right income out of it, it's going to be that liability. So we need to be able to create momentum by leveraging and still creating income. So that's going to take out a lot of property types right now. So when we're looking to acquire property, right, we want to be able to source property. This is where property filter comes in. I'll talk to you about in a bit. We need to be able to structure our deals, and we need to be able to secure them correctly. Okay, a lot of people go around securing their property deals incorrectly and lose a lot of money. I hate seeing people lose money in property. I had a very good friend of mine lost 300,000 on a joint venture investment he made because he didn't secure it properly. So we need to be able to secure our funds. Now, to add value, right, we've got multiple mechanisms, and I'm going to go through non-traditional value add mechanisms. So the traditional ones are kind of to add stuff, right? So carve it up, add units, add floor space, buy below market value, genuine below market value. For me, we're going to be focusing on commercial add value mechanisms. Now, there's actually a D that I've created through one of my deals, which is called deferment. So I'm going to talk to you about that as well. So commercial and deferment. Deferment is deferring tax liabilities from things you buy, which is really cool and very easy to do. But ultimately, I want you to be able to identify properties where you can add value without having to carve it up, without having to do construction, without having to do development, right? Just using commercial means. With the asset income, we need to be able to rent, and we need to be able to rent as high as we can and as consistently as we can. We need to be able to refinance, and we need to get a return on our money. This is what I call ROCE, return on capital employed, which is my definition of ROCE, is the return you're getting on your funds or your investor funds after you add the value and refinance. So anything that's left in after a refinance event, that's the return that we want. And personally, in my portfolio, I target 50% minimum return after a value add and refinance event. Okay. So if we can acquire and we can add value, but we can't create income, we're not going to have any income in our business. That's a miserable place to live. If we can acquire and create income, but we can't add value, we have no momentum, right? We'll hit a brick wall in our growth. If we're going to add value and create income, but we can't find properties in the first place, we've got no deals. And that clearly is the lifeblood of any business, is creating deal flow, right? Which is where we're going to focus on with Property Filter today. Get all of those three together, we've got Property Alchemy. We can literally create money and income out of thin air without any resources. I love it. So this is a AAA method, and I'm going to go through a couple of these items as we go through this. Oh, there we go. There's a funky thing with Property Alchemy. So yeah, we're going to go through the three secrets, and they're all going to refer to one part of this. Now, before I go on to the sort of the three teaching points on this, has anybody got any questions? Is everybody still here and engaged? Is this interesting as a concept so far? I want to see at least 10 yeses before I continue. Or thumbs up. Thumbs up is fine as well. Amazing. I love you guys. I'm going to come back again if this is all right. Right. Okay, let's do it. Let's get into some teaching stuff. So secret one, how this one type of property can bring you £3,000 or more every month on autopilot. Okay, so here we are talking, if we go to the bottom, we're talking about asset income, and specifically we're talking about that rent element. So let's sort of zoom out a little bit and let's see how life used to be in property. This was my very first BRR. If you know what BRR means, it means buy, refurb, refurbish. This is a property called 11 Wycliffe Street in Rock Ferry, Birkenhead, right? It's in the northwest. It's a pretty dodgy area, if I'm honest. This was the first one I ever bought. So there's my completion statement. You can see I bought that for £38,000 on the 12th of December 2011. Might actually be my second one I bought. I can't remember because I was buying quite a lot of those sort of single lets down there. So that might be my second one. Anyway, £38,000 with all the other bits and bobs, right? 38,594. Can you imagine back in a day, which wasn't even that long ago, that you're buying houses for 38 grand? I think you can probably still get them fairly cheap up in these areas, but probably not 38 grand anymore. Anybody buy property for 38 grand anymore, like a self-contained single let in any area of the country? Still can. Ray says still can. Whereabouts? Where can we get them? Northeast? Like sort of northwest. Cool. Yeah. Actually, you probably can, like Liverpool. There's probably some areas of Liverpool. I was thinking more east. You can probably still get Hartlepool, those sort of areas. You can still certainly find them, which is amazing. It's like less than a car, less than an average car. There we go. Anyway, so I bought it for 38 grand. You can see this was my refinance statement, which was, as that got a date on it, it was 6 months. So there you go, 5th of August 2020, refinanced, £47,351 out of it. So I spent about nine grand on this one. I can't remember exactly. I think the figures are going to say in a moment. I did most of the work myself. right? There was some damage in it. You know, I did a refurb myself, pulled out pretty much all of the money from that one. So that was the standard model, right? So this is what the figures look like. So rent at £600 per month. It wasn't when I bought it. I think it was probably about £550 in 2011. It's probably 600 now that I've sold it. The costs of that though, right? So mortgage, I've now changed this. I've kind of equated this to current figures. So if I was on the interest only at 6%, which is not unreasonable, right? £237 per month. Voids maintenance, I always put 10% in for single let, so £60 per month. Management, I always get my management agency. I never want to manage myself, so £60 per month. So net left of that £600 per month rent is £243 per month, okay? Now, if you are a higher rate taxpayer, and you're subject to Section 24, it's in your own name, which I know a lot of people have portfolios who are high rate taxpayers and they're subject to Section 24. That would then have £192 minus your £47.4 20% tax relief. So Section 24 tax would remove another £144.60 of that. And a lot of people, right, don't look at figures net of tax. So important we understand the tax liability of things we're buying, because that old tax man, right, if you don't get it right, it's going to take way more than you think. So post-tax income from that property, £98.40 a month. Anybody here get vaguely excited about that amount of net income? And that's assuming, right, you don't have a boiler that goes, right, and all of a sudden you've got a £2,000 bill that comes out of it, right? For me, you have to have a lot of those to have any sort of quality of life. And imagine the management and the stress you're going to have. And this is exactly what started happening, right? Not an awful lot. So let's contrast that with this property. This is a unicorn that I bought in 2021, okay? This property is actually the one, it's slightly right of the middle. Sorry, I'm pointing with my finger. You can't see where I'm pointing on my screen. It's very slightly right of the middle. It's the one with the grey frontage with Div. It's actually Diva Hair. It's a hairdresser down there. They fixed the sign now, but it's that building there. So it's a hairdresser's on the ground floor. It's 5 flats above it. Now, this is in the centre of Chester, within the city centre walls, another Georgian townhouse style building. We're about 100 meters away down to the left-hand side of this picture is Chester Racecourse, if anybody knows Chester. So a beautiful part of the world. Let's look at the figures of this one. So rent on this, right, the 5 flats rent out for £2,800 per month on a lease. So it's a fully repairing and insuring lease with a social, well, it's a supported living providers. It's actually a housing association who put in young adults with learning difficulties. So they lease it off me for £2,800 per month. The hairdressers pays about £1,000 per month. It's just under £1,000. So total rent roll on this is £3,800 per month. The costs on this, okay, the mortgage, again, to do a fair comparison, I've got interest only at 6%. Based on, this is the actual size of the mortgage I have on it, £1,225 per month is the interest on the mortgage. Voids maintenance are 0 because it's a fully repairing and insuring lease. Okay, Section 24 is 0 because my limited company owns it. So the net on this is £2,575 per month. Okay, and you're probably going to ask me, how much does that cost? How much money have you got in it, right? But I'm going to get back to that in a second. I'm going to show you the actual purchase figures. Let's just say, who would rather the case where you're getting 98 quid a month for a 2 up, 2 down in Birkenhead, or £2,500 a month, guaranteed, for a lovely block of self-contained units in the middle of Chester? No brainer, right? Thanks, Connie. It's an absolute no brainer, right? Hands up if you want £2,500 a month on autopilot coming in. Yeah, 2,575. A good number. So look, just for clarity, I've not been to this property since 2015 and it's 2024, which is slightly frustrating because I'm on a 10-year lease, which means end of next year, the lease expires. So we're going to have to start release negotiations. The net is not after tax though, for a fair comparison. You mean after corporation tax? Is that what you mean? So I love it. I love it when we get the question about that. You're absolutely right, Thurston. But when you're in your limited company, we have okay, here's an interesting question. I think this is an interesting discussion point. Let me come off. I would like to address this. I see this on the forums all the time. When we're looking at tax, we have to understand what our priorities are. Okay, are we looking for growth? Are we looking for income? So everybody, tax is very contextual, based on what you are doing. Okay, so here's a little thing for you. So I don't want to go too much into it right now, but whenever I buy property and unicorn properties, we've got so many tax benefits, one of them being capital allowances. So generally, when I buy a property, we're going to get a significant amount of tax breaks in terms of capital allowances, which gives a load of time to chew through income without paying any tax on it at all. To give you an example, I bought a commercial conversion in 2017, turned it to 13 flats and sold the ground floor off to 2 retail units. And that brings in 5,800 a month. It's the one that's 5,800 a month. We've been having that 5,800 a month every month. This year, I've just done the tax return for it. It's the first time we've paid any corporation tax on that in that SPV, because we've offset it with various mechanisms and capital allowances. So this is why it's much more complicated, or is a less transparent picture when you're looking at limited companies. The other thing is, you're absolutely right. If you're, oh, sorry, I need to stop doing that. If you are taking your money out of your limited company as an income stream, 100%, you're going to be paying dividend tax on it. You're absolutely right. But my question to you is, do you need to take it all out? So what I do is I take out only enough what I need to live off, which is quite modest, if I'm totally honest. All the rest stays in and gets reinvested. We have various mechanisms like putting money into your pension pot, where you can put 60 grand a year out of your limited company into your pension pot, tax-free, offsets all your corporation tax. I buy my electric cars through my limited companies. So I have 100% first year write-down allowance. So the whole tax thing is, when there's so many more mechanisms we can use than limited company. I don't want to go down the tax rabbit hole right here because it is so contextual. But if you're doing tax properly through a limited company, you're going to be mitigating huge amounts of that corporation tax. The other thing is, I have my limited companies are seeded from personal directors' loans into the company from various places. And that means you can pay back your director's loan tax-free until that's all exhausted as well. Now, you might go, where do you get all this equity from in the first place, Rob? Just the way I think. So where I am right now, I'm in a rental property. So I go through a cycle of buying something in my personal name, adding value, living in it. So my primary residence, adding value, selling it. Of course, when you sell it, that is tax-free. Then I move into rental and stick that money into the limited company as a director's loan. Then take it out. So the rent, what I live off, is basically paying my director's loan back. So I'm not actually paying any tax on that at all at the moment. Of course, that does run out at some point. Edward says our capital allowance is changing. They are changing, Edward. They're being cemented for £1 million a year allowance for capital allowances, which has been temporary for the last few years. You might be referring to furnished holiday let capital allowances. Let's not go too much into that right now, because we'll be here forever talking about tax, but I'm happy to take questions at the end, team. So yeah, the whole tax thing is a massive contextual thing, but you are right. You are correct. Maybe it's not a complete fair comparison. However, hopefully I've made the point, right? So there we go. There's the rent roll coming in from that property. So that's one example of a cash machine. Here's another example of a cash machine, the Phoenix Club. This is a big old beastie of a building. This is the one I was talking about, actually, that we got probably 6 years worth of tax-free income from this using capital allowances. You can see it's a big building, right? So there's a lot of capital allowances to claim in that. So let's just talk through the figures on this one. We got 13 flats. We leased them. When I did these slides, it's 5,285. It's now 5,800 per month to the local council. It's actually a private contract with a private entity that is at arm's length with the local council, but 5,285. Again, costs, going mortgage, interest only with the mortgage we've got on it, £2,000 per month. Voids maintenance, 0. It's an FRI lease. Section 24, 0. Net 3,285. We can actually add another 600 onto that now. So it's about 3,600 net after the rent review we did last month in May. No, it's this month, May. We're still in May, aren't we? There we go. Screenshots just to demonstrate that. So the point is, right, I want you to think about how can you, Bikran, I'll talk about costs in a bit, if that's all right. I'll talk about the acquisition costs if you're happy to do that. So I wanted to just talk about the rent roll on that little section. Who would rather, right, in fact, let me phrase this correctly. Option 1, residential tenants, ASTs, voids, maintenance issues, management issues, arrears, all of that sort of stuff. Option 2, get your properties, higher density blocks of units, right, where you can find organizations, councils, social housing, supported living, housing associations, who will take them on leases. Which would you rather? Would you rather option 1 or 2? Perfect. Me too. So much easier. B. You got to be different, don't you? 2. Yes, nice, cool. So we've established we want to lease things out. So for me, my bedrock of my portfolio, if you look at a risk pyramid, let's just go full screen. If you look at a risk pyramid, right, my bedrock, my lower rung are high density blocks leased, because I know with that it pays for everything. It pays for my life. It pays for all the costs in a business. And then we start to layer different models on top of it, right? I've got various models that I teach. The urban gold mine is one. I teach something called sparkles. I teach something called Costco method. We do apart hotels, I have a new strategy called Animal House, which is definitely not for the faint-hearted, but can make a lot of cash flow. So we then layer upon that bedrock. Okay, lovely. Who is ready for us to go to secret 2? How to find these things, right, within 5 minutes? Who would like to find a unicorn within 5 minutes? Obviously, segueing beautifully into using property filter. So let's hit it. So I use, in all seriousness, I do use property filter for everything now. We are in the acquire stage. So we're in the source at this bit. So step 1, acquire. Step 1 of step 1 is source. So we have to be able to find these things, right? I want you to find them super, super quickly. I've got various mechanisms I use to identify these sort of properties, right? They're not just going to jump out at you and go, look, you can't just go on Rightmove and go, here they all are, right? There's a section on Rightmove, property unicorns, doesn't exist. So we've got to be a little bit more clever with it. What I don't want you to do is be out there viewing hundreds and hundreds of properties, right? Because I used to be like this when I had my old portfolio. This is what I looked like. A little bit overweight, no hair. Now, you know, I've got a nice mane of hair and able to go running and go to the gym every day because I'm not spending my whole time looking at properties, right? So I want you to build this property machine. We want to automate this whole thing. So this is actually a schematic that I created in 2015. So I've been teaching this for almost 10 years. The property filter team will laugh at me because it probably looks like literally some old steam driven thing. And I used to teach how to set this up with virtual assistants and various pieces of automation and connecting spreadsheets with Zapier and all of that sort of stuff. And then property filter came along and basically does it all for you, which is really super cool. So I just want you to think that in the middle, right, you've got a database. The database is your brain. And I want you to think of property filter is effectively now your database. It is your brain. Okay. So that is your pipeline, of which is, you know, the core of property filter. On the left-hand side, we have inputs. So the inputs here, you can see portals, web forms, direct to vendor calls. So scrub all of that out, put property filter lead generators. That is your main input into your database. Of course, we can do other things, right? I'm sure even the property filter team will admit we can't find every single off-market property through property filter. So there are still other things we can look at, like going direct to vendor. You know, I've never been into dirty marketing or stuff like that. I just prefer, you know, using the 80-20 methods. But we can do our own marketing. We could do our own Facebook ads through web forms, that sort of stuff. Anyway, on the left, inputs into the database. On the right, we want to effectively run them through this process. So generally, I want to pre-qualify. So you're going to see a lot of stuff that's not going to work for you, right? We need to very quickly pre-qualify, get them out, you know, forget them. I call it the 80-20 appraisal. I teach it on my core coaching program, Deal Blitz, the 80-20 appraisal, to get rid of all the gumph that we don't want. Then we need to go and view them. We do need to view properties, but when we view a property, I only view a property if I want to buy it, or if I think I want to buy it. So I've done the appraisal, I've got my overview figures, I know where the value unlock is, right? And then we need to go and view it. View, get into negotiation, the chances of you getting a deal that works at the structural price point that you want it to right at the beginning are almost zero, right? But we're going to negotiate, put that offer in. The chances are it's not going to be accepted, or it's not going to be accepted as we want it. And if we can't make it work, that feeds all the way back into the database, right? And we keep it in this loop, this follow-up loop. So I think even in property filter in the pipeline, the last stage of it is called follow-up, right? So, you know, you put it in your follow-up part of the pipeline. Oh, sorry, somebody's calling me. I can go off. You know, we just go into a loop and we keep readdressing that. I usually recommend every 8 weeks to readdress the offer until somebody else buys it or you get an offer agreed. Okay, so that's the property machine. Now, one of the strategies that I use and I teach is called value arbitrage to actually identify these things. Give me a yes if you are happy with the principle of valuing property on a price per square foot basis. Yes, perfect, Alan. Yes, yes, yes. Good. Or square meter. You're very new school. I'm old school with price per square foot. I know I'm older than I look. So if your square meter, either stay in square meter or times it by 10.7 to get to your square foot. I think you're meter squared, aren't you, in the system? Yeah, I'm a bit old school with price per square foot. Anyway, same thing, right? At the end of the day. So ultimately, right, the easiest way we can identify this is finding something I call the anomalies. So you will find properties that are very obviously anomalies when you look at a price per square foot basis, which is a great way of common sizing everything, right? And just going, oh, this is priced really cheaply for some reason. Why is it priced cheaply? So it's one of the key things that I look for. So just an example, here's one of my property filters, right, that I have set up. This is my investment area, Northwest. You don't need to come and look at any of these areas, nothing to see, no deals. So if you just stay out of that blue area, that'd be really cool. I should have done somewhere completely different, shouldn't I? So let me just zoom. Oh no, sorry. I need to go back and I need to try and zoom in on that. So I use some non-standard filters. One of my initial ones I do. So I don't know if you can see this. I should have got my pen. Company owner, right? I like to find properties with company owners that have company owners identified. So I have a filter where I set it up with property owners identified as one of my filters. The reason that I like doing that is I enjoy, sorry, I need to stop going to that slide. Company owners often have different exit criterias to number one, residential sellers, okay? But number two, private sellers. Now, of course, company owners is going to pick up limited companies that might just be an investor, but you're also going to pick up a lot of other things. You're going to pick up institutions, you're going to pick up funds, you're going to pick up pensions who are divesting of assets. So a fantastic, I love speaking to funds and pensions because they will work something called IRR, right? Is anybody familiar with the term IRR in terms of an investment figure? If you're not, just let me know and I'll very quickly give you an overview. Oh, perfect. So, God, we're not only engaged, we're also in extremely. Oh, we got to know. That's fine. Don't worry. It's a more institutional term. So, as Azim says there, internal rate of return. So, effectively, right, when I buy property, I look at that ROCE, which is when I buy it, I want to know what cash flow or what return I'm getting on any funds I leave in. If you look at something like an institution or a company, they'll use IRR, which is the full end-to-end return on that investment, which includes the purchase price and the sale price. So, let's say they buy something at $1 million. 10 years later, they sell it for $1 million. They've made nothing on the capital value, but they've rented it for, I don't know, $1 million, $1 million, that'd be aggressive, 100 grand a year for 10 years. So they've made £1 million worth of return from the cash flow. So over the period of that ownership, they've made £1 million. So that's one example. Now let's say they buy it for $1 million, they get 100 grand a year for 10 years, and they sell it for 2 million, right? They've now made 2 million return, on or they 1 million. Yes, they made 2 million. But you could also go, right, they bought it for $1 million, then 10 years later they've sold it for 500 grand, so they've actually lost $500,000 on the sale price, but they've rented it out for 250 grand a year. Let's just say it's a really high cash flow for 10 years. They've made 2.5 million on the rental income over 10 years. Yes, they've lost $500,000 of capital value, but they're still 2 million net up. So the IRR is measuring that sort of overall picture. So therefore, when some of these funds are exiting, the exit price is less important to them to hit their investment returns, right? That's an amazing leverage tool when you understand how to use that in a negotiation. So this is one we're buying at the moment. It's actually in legals, in conveyancing. So hopefully we should be exchanging the next few weeks on it. This is actually a commercial conversion rather than an urban gold mine, but we are going to turn it into an urban gold mine. So we've got ground floor. You can see, the whole thing is commercial at the moment. So it's a bakery with effectively offices, storage above. What we are looking at doing is turning the floors 1, 2, 3 into sort of a super HMO, and then just having a smaller retail unit at the bottom. But what cued me into this, right, was the very first thing was this as the owner. Okay, so when we used our filter, this popped up as the owner. Now I've grayed out some of it because we're still in legals. So it's something trustees limited. The moment you see trustees, you know it's probably a pension, right? That's selling it. And immediately I go, right, there's leverage here. So that's the first thing that cued my eyes. Now, when we go through this 80-20 appraisal method, there's a few key points we're looking at. This is one of them. The second thing I then go and look at is the price per square foot. So again, this is taken from the property filter card screen, whatever you guys call it. You can see, I want you to see this one in the middle. So you can see the average. Oh, it is in meter squared, isn't it? Average in the area is £2,110 per square meter. And this property is listed at £726 per square meter. So there's a significant potential for value arbitrage here, right? So I can see now most of that average is probably residential, right? So this is obviously I can swap the square footage in the settings. Oh, this has been like so valuable already for me. Means I don't have to divide things by 10.7 or times it by 10.7. So I can see already there's a 3 times uplift onto the average residential price per square foot or price per square meter in the area. That means value unlock. I don't know what the value unlock is yet. Remember, we're doing an 80-20 appraisal at this point. Then the next thing I'm going to have a look at, if the slide will change, which is resolute. Oh, it's because I'm not on play. Is the ladder, right? So first point, who's it owned by? Second point, is there a price per square foot arbitrage play? And then I'm going to look at the ladder. So we can see this one, okay, listed at 275,000 on the 24th of the 10th, 2023. It's been on the market for a while, and then they've dropped it to 230,000. So I approached this the moment they dropped it from 275 to 230. And you can see that drop from 275 to 230 will have changed that pound per square meter figure by, you know, a considerable amount. So the ladder is there in play. The final thing that I'm looking for on this one, right, as you can see, the last sold at the top there is 1/1/2009. So it was last sold 1st of January 2009 for 240,000. Okay. So they bought it 15 years ago for 240. They're currently listing it now at 230. So that is an 80-20 appraisal done. There's an arbitrage play there for me. Now we went in and negotiated this, okay, and we secured this at 200. So when it's gone into the red as sold, that's us buying it at 200,000. So listed at 275, we bought it for 200, which is probably, you know, is another 10% below. So what's that? It's probably 650 a square meter. So you know, when you work out the commercial valuation based on a 8-bed super HMO and a unit, retail unit, it's a significant uplift to upload there. And that's all identified by just using that filter and focusing on the price per square foot, right? So you can do that very, very quickly. Just have a quick flick through, have a look at that value arbitrage. And if you find it, then you can start delving deeper as to how you can unlock that value. Does that make sense to everybody? Ray says, which template am I using? So I've made a custom template there. I'm very much, that particular one was found using company owners. Commercial, I've got various things in there, commercial with company owners, right? Honestly, you can find 5 minutes, you'll find a load of outliers. Because that's pretty much one of my first cue-ins for all of these is they're going to be an outlier. This is another one. I said at the beginning, I found this on Property Filter, exactly the same. Right, exactly same theory. This was initially queued in from the price per square meter. Sorry, I keep saying price per square foot. Price per square foot, outlier is an anomaly. It's just priced incorrectly, way low. Now, there might be a reason for that anomaly. It might be an absolute pile of junk, right, which you don't want to buy. I'm not saying just because it's super cheap, you want to buy it, but it cues your eyes in. And generally, unicorns are priced or the unicorns that you want to buy, remember, one of the criteria of a unicorn is to add at least 100 grand's worth of value in 6 months. You can do that with strategies like price per square foot arbitrage. I've got loads of other strategies to teach, including I call the balance sheet hacking method, which I've talked to you about a bit, yield compression, various lease re-engineering, all of these things which we can do to change or unlock the value without doing any work to it. Chris says, can you just recap on what you look with pound per square foot? Oh, sorry. Yeah, if I go back. So here you can just see a big discrepancy between the average and what it's listed at. So average here is 2,110 per square meter, and the property here is listed at 726 per square meter. So it's a third, right? This property is listed at a third of the average. as I said, you might look at it, it might be, this might cost $1 million to take it up to spec, right? In which case you don't want to do it. So you need to then work out how you can use it, or where you've, if you can then unlock the value. All right. Hopefully that helps. So use that. Right. I'm not, no, I've been through that. So I've talked to you about those figures. I'm not going to bore you with that one too much. Oh, okay. In fact, sorry, actually, I will run you through the figures on this. This is the one we bought last year that we bought for 345. When I put the slide deck together, we were 45 grand in. We actually probably spent 70 in the end. So this was, when I put the slide deck together, we were halfway through this. So change GDC, that's gross development cost, to 420 rather than 390, right? 420 to 390. Something that I used to always highlight, and I can't now because of Jeremy Hunt and the budget, was the power of MDR, multiple dwellings relief, right? Who here likes to spend loads of money on stamp duty? I can see a lot of questions coming, by the way. What we'll do is we'll get to the end and I'll take questions if that's all right. So I don't like stamp duty. I think that's a horrific tax that you've got to pay. You can see on this one, we bought it for 345,000. The stamp duty we paid, 3,450. Can anybody do the quick maths and work out what that is as a percentage? 1%. Top of the class. So none of this 3% surcharge rubbish, none of this, 5% brackets, right? 1%. This is using MDR on a commercial stamp duty rate. MDR being multiple dwelling relief, how we can effectively get them priced as a per unit price on commercial rates. Minimum with MDR would always be 1%. Sadly, as of 1st of June, so if anybody's got anything going through, you've got a week until MDR goes. That was an annoyance for me when that got announced in the budget. But anyway, we do what we can. Just as a heads up, if you're buying blocks, if you get 6 or more in a block, then you're going to get commercial rates rather than residential rates anyway, which is going to negate the 3% surcharge, which I think is horrific. But there we go. It's a cost of doing business. You just got to build it into your figures. So purchase price 345. Let's say we're 420 in. The rent, now I've averaged this at market rent in Chester, 2,800. So it's their 700 a flat. We're actually short-term letting 2 of them. So we're expecting more than that, but it's unfair of me to give a short-term let income until it's been operating for a year to do a full cycle of the year. So I'm using this as AST rates. The commercial, when I did the slide deck, was 2,000. Now, interestingly, we actually had a bidding war on the commercial, and we landed it with a tenant at 2,500 a month who signed up in April for a 20-year lease at 30,000 a year. So we've actually achieved more than is in that. So we've got there total 4,800. In reality, right, with the tenant who we've got in downstairs, it's 5,300. And then if we go with the anticipated short-term let from 2 of the flats, we're probably closer to 6.5, 7 grand a month income. Okay. But I'm going conservative on this for the valuation, because this is really important, team. When we are looking at unicorns, we want to understand how to value these things on a commercial yield valuation. And I don't want to go through it right now. It's too complicated. If you know it, you know it. If you don't, I'm going to tell you how you can find about it. If I learn about this at the end. If we base this on a 10% yield, the property will be valued at 576, 9% yield, 640, 8% yield, £720,000. And we're in for 420. So we've got it valued at 603 with the works incomplete based on based on a lower rent roll. So I think it's 650. So that was just going through how we work out that. So was that helpful to look at how we can go and find some unicorns very quickly using price per square foot or price per square meter arbitrage? Let's go through this. Everything we need to do in property should be add value, recycle, create cash flow. This is the mantra. Can we add value? Can we recycle cash? Can we create cash flow? If not, I wouldn't be looking to buy it. So we're now in the add value section, okay? And also I'm kind of verging between the add value and the structure section of acquire. Okay, so I want to look at, depending on how we can add the value, is how we can then structure the deals and use either other people's funds or work with the vendor or all that sort of stuff. So here's an example of another unicorn that I bought. This one I bought during COVID. This is again a large chunk of property in the middle of Chester. It's a guest house, 14 ensuite rooms in the guest house, and a 2-bed owner's flat. Okay, so large property. Pre-COVID, you can see that they had it on the market in auction at offers over 950. Didn't sell at that, a little bit frothy, and then obviously COVID came along, and they were not in a good place in COVID because the guest house, they had to shut down, so they lost all their income. So here's what we did. We bought it for 765,000 to get it done for them because they wanted to downsize. They wanted to get a bungalow. They were retiring, didn't want to work anymore. But very classic baby boomer business model, guest house. They didn't need all the equity up front. They needed some of it to go and buy a bungalow in cash, but they were quite happy to take some of it longer term in terms of an income stream. So we structured it with number one, portfolio refinance. So the Phoenix Club that I talked about earlier, that one where we had 13 flats that we're renting to the council, we did that on a development finance product. We added a chunk of equity, and then we were able to refinance off the development product with a facility that we secured against the Phoenix Club and this. So one mortgage over the two, effectively commercial finance with Lloyd's. And by doing that, we didn't have to put a lot of extra funds in to actually buy this because we basically secured against equity in other parts of the portfolio. Now, we couldn't get enough to do it all without putting extra funds in, so we had to get a bit of vendor deferment. So we spoke to the vendors, and they were very happy that we didn't have to put it all in up front. The rest could be done over a longer term basis, which effectively we created a loan agreement with them and then paid it monthly out of the cash flow of the property. So you can see down at the bottom, we bought that for 765,000. We haven't actually had it revalued since we bought it. Zoopla, which is notoriously rubbish, but I quite like it because it says the high end of the valuation could be 1.22 mil. Based on the income it's producing, we actually reckon it's about 1.1 mil at the moment, based on the income. Interestingly, you can see on that Zoopla thing that in Chester we have had a dip in prices based on HPI's house price indices since the beginning of Jan 23, which is probably not unexpected with what's happened to the property market. So the rent roll on this bad boy, 14 rooms, we rent it out for gross 7,700 a month. We're actually starting to increase that up a little bit now. The flats we put on the short-term let market, and net, look at the last 2 years, probably about £1,500 a month net. That's after all costs. Total £9,200 per month rent roll. Now we do have some costs in this one because it's HMO. And HMO is not my favorite model, but I'll talk to you about the theory behind this one in a bit. So the costs, now this is capital interest mortgage, about £2,000 per month. I do want to clarify this portfolio refinance product that we took out in the end of 2020. We fixed it for 5 years. We were quite lucky. We've got a 5-year fix at 3% across basically £1 million worth of funding at 3%. I am acutely aware that that ends in about 18 months' time. So we are looking at strategies right now about what to do with that, okay? Because clearly this is the whole point, that with interest rates going up, it's going to erode a lot of cash flow. So we're doing really nicely at the moment, but I'm not anticipating that's going to stay forever. However, we never know what's going to happen with interest rates over the next 18 months. So we do pay a manager to look after this, £1,380 a month. We don't pay any rates on it. It qualifies for small business rate relief. Utilities are £700 per month. If I'm honest, it's probably a bit more now because we've just come out of a 2-year fixed contract on utilities and they've gone up a little bit. So it might be, it is a bit more now. Cleaning, £300 per month, which nets us £4,820. And don't forget, that's a capital and interest repayment mortgage. So actually, there's a bit more on top of that. It's just going into the bricks and mortar of the building to pay down the debt on it. Okay, so that's one example. So we use that as vendor deferment. So portfolio refinance and vendor deferment. I would say that model, baby boomer, retiring baby boomer from almost, trading businesses, is a real great place to find vendor deferment and long-term payment plans that you can buy property. Because ultimately, if they get, a chunk of it, but the rest is income, that's all they want. It depends on their circumstances. This one, however, I like even more as a structure. Okay, so this was this property in Watergate Street. I know somebody asked about what are the figures that the purchase figures. So this is what actually happened, right? This was a 2-phase deal, slightly complicated. I've gone through that already. Let me just flip that up again, just so you can see where we are with it. So that was the income, right? Now we bought this for 345,000. I bought this for 345,000. I need to explain. I originally took over this property on a lease in 2015. So the background behind it was the property is owned by a company. There are 4 shareholders in this company, all of which are elderly. They bought this property in the 70s, okay, for about 20 grand. And what they then did at some point is they put a housing association, or a housing association came along, took what was commercial floors above the commercial unit, took it off them and converted it into 5 flats. And the housing association paid for all 5 flats. or the conversion of 5 flats. The housing association then were on a 20-year lease, and get this, with 0 rent reviews for 20 years, which ended in 2015. And when they came off it, the lease value was, I think it was £450 a month, not per unit, for the whole lot. So 5 flats in the middle of Chester, the landlord was getting £450 a month for that. So very, very low lease. So when that expired, the housing association actually moved out, because they had got purpose-built accommodation now. And the landlord wanted to find somebody else to take over the flats. So I took over the flats on a 10-year lease, and I increased the rent from 450 to 1,100. So I was paying the landlord £1,100 a month rent, but then I found a supported living company, put them in at £2,600 a month. So I was making a £1,500 a month rent, £1,500 a month margin on a sublease. It's a strategy I call lease and leverage. Everybody happy with that concept? So I was leasing the block of 5 flats for 1,100 and then subleasing for 2,600 a month, and I was making that £1,500 a month margin. I had to do a little refurb, so it was about 20 grand refurb across the flats, which I got on a unsecured loan from the bank. And if you think about it, basically year 1 pays back for that refurb, and then you got 9 years of gravy after that. So Sunil says, is it similar to rent to rent? Yes and no. So generally rent to rent, people do it with serviced accommodation or HMOs, rather than long-term leases. I would say this is, can I not be patronizing? Can I say this is a more grown-up version of rent to rent? So we're actually doing lease manipulation or lease re-engineering with this, rather than rent to rent, which personally I feel is more of a strategy where you're really a property manager, but taking more of the upside, but also liable for some of the downside. So I like to differentiate it from the two. So basically it's set and forget. There's no management involved. You just put them in there and you just re-engineering the leases. So anyway, when I went into the lease in 2015, I tried to get an option to purchase the building. They wouldn't give it to me. But what they did put into the lease was I would have first right of refusal as the main lease lessee in there, should they decide to sell the freehold within that 10 years. So 2021, one of the shareholders sadly passed away. The other 3, who are in their 80s by now, decided that it's time to divest the assets. And so because I got that first right of refusal, they offered me the freehold. They valued the freehold at 360,000 based on the value of the lease that I was paying them. Don't forget, it's a grossly under market value lease. So they've been quite nice to me by using that lease and offering me the freehold at 360,000. The hairdresser in there as well. Bit of negotiation, got it for 345 in the end. So structure. This is a strategy I call balance sheet hacking, right? I'll run you through what that means in a sec, and also lease re-engineering. So here's what we then did. We actually bought it for 280 grand. We didn't buy the property, we bought the company. So after we agreed the purchase price of 345, the sellers turned around and said, oh, we've been advised by our accountants for tax reasons, we would rather sell the company than the property. Are you up for that? I had a look at it. I was like, okay, let's do it. So rather than use conveyancers, we then use commercial solicitors. So actually the commercial solicitors, a bit more expensive. So we knocked 5 grand off the purchase price to 340 to cater for the additional legal costs with buying a company. When we were going through due diligence, we saw on the company accounts it's called a deferred tax liability for basically the capital gain of that property of £60,000 was sitting in the balance sheet, which basically means if the company sold the property, because it's gone up so much in value, you'd have to pay corporation tax on that capital gain, and that would be 60,000. Now, they're not selling the property, they're selling the company. So if I bought the company for £340,000, I would basically be buying that deferred tax liability. So if I then sold the property from within the company, I would have to pay that tax, which of course is grossly unfair because I've not benefited from the capital gain. So we then went in with this and renegotiated to knock off the deferment for corporation tax from the purchase price of the company. So we bought the company for £280,000. Okay. Everybody happy with this, by the way, in terms of, I know it's a bit of a complex thing, but hopefully that made sense, right? Perfect. So what we then did, right? Now, don't forget, I've got the lease for 1,100 that I'm paying, and then I'm subleasing for 2,600. So I effectively, because I'm now buying the company, I own the company, I can just get rid of that lease for 1,100. I don't need it anymore. I can, both parties, which by the way is the company I bought and my company, go, we can get rid of that lease, don't need it anymore. And therefore the only lease existing was the lease to the supported living company for 2,600 a month, plus the hairdresser, which is about £1,000 a month. So by doing that, we've then gone to a lender and said, look, we're buying this company, which has got this property in it. The leases on the property are this amount, which is about 3,000 whatever. Come and value it. They valued it at 435,000. Right? So effectively, as a net deal, we bought the company for 280. The day we bought the company, we already had the loan approved. So said we now want to draw the loan down. Conveyancers got involved. A few weeks later, we got the refinance funds because we refinanced the property. And the funds from the refinance of the property paid back almost all of the money we used to buy the company in the first place. So we actually, there we go. There's the completion statement from buying the company. You can see it's actually 259,000 we bought it for, and then there's a £20,000 director's loan. So they had the sellers had a £20,000 director's loan in. So through bizarre accountancy practices, the 280 we spent was actually 260 to buy the company and 20 to pay off their director's loan. So effectively, that's like me putting a director's loan into the company to pay off their director's loan, which actually means I've got a 20 grand director's loan sitting in there, which I can take out tax-free whenever I want, whenever the money is in there to do that. Okay, so like another little cherry on top there. Who thinks this is cool, by the way, as like a strategy? This is one of the reasons I look for companies selling, by the way. And there's the refinance. There's the refinance statement from day one. So they actually allowed us to draw down 245 plus the fee of 5 grand, so 250. So if you remember, they valued it at 435. This is where the slight con comes in. They're like, look, we know what you're buying it for. We're not going to let you take all of your money out. You've got to leave some money in, at least for a few years. Then you can refinance in a few years' time. So even though we've got a very low loan to value, they basically let us take out 250 of the 280 we used to buy it. So there's 30 grand left in. I say 35. If you put the fee on, we didn't actually put that 5 in. There's 30 of our original money plus the fee that's left in the deal. So that deal is pumping out, if you remember, sort of about 3,000 something a month. We've got 35 of our own cash in the deal. So year one, all your money's out. And now we've got a property with I think it's about 240 or 230 left on the loan, and it's valued at 435 in 2021. The leases have gone up since then. It's probably 450 to 500 now. So we're actually now looking at refinance, just waiting for the interest rate to come down before we look at refinance. All right. So that is called balance sheet hacking. Now, you're probably going, how does that benefit me? If you can do that, right, so the actual mechanism we use was I was lucky enough to have liquid funds in my holding company at the time to buy the company for 280. But if you're working with joint venture partners, right, this is a very quick in out. So I reckon the money was out for, I think, probably 6 weeks in the end. So I didn't want to use Bridger because bridging put loads of fees in, right, for such a short bridge. But if you can find somebody to stick that money in, right, it's secured. 6 weeks later, the refinance comes in and they get the money back out again. Very easy sell to a joint venture partner to do a transaction like that if you can find it and negotiate it. All right. Cool. That was Watergate Street. Oh. And that was a mixture of structure and how to add value. So the structure to buy it was balance sheet hacking. We added value through lease re-engineering, which is another strategy I teach in that commercial section. So increasing the leases, obviously with a commercial valuation methodology, increases the valuation of the property. Those are my 3 key secrets. Before we go on to just a very quick roundup at the end, was that useful, team, to go through that? Has anybody got any burning questions before we just do a roundup? Perfect. Re-engineering, grown-up rent to rent. We've spawned some new strategies here. Cool. Perfect. Right, look, I wanted to leave you this because this is my view. I've been teaching people for 10 years in property why I think people fail in property, right? A lot of people go into property with a traditional investor mindset. My point of view, if you want to do property properly, right, we have to think with a different mindset. We have to think with an entrepreneurial mindset. And for me, success in property is a blend of almost startup mentality, fast growth business M&A mentality, combining it with property assets. Okay, so rather than traditional stick a deposit in something and buy it and cash flow it, it's very difficult to actually make anything work like that. We have to think a bit more agile, a bit more entrepreneurial. The second thing is being unfocused. You'll see there, all of my stuff that I'm buying there now, all of those unicorns are within a 3-mile radius. I don't look anywhere out of that anymore. Maybe I might, sometimes go 5, 6, 7 miles, but everyone's all over the place all the time. I say, go deep, go narrow. It's the only way you're going to uncover these gems, is to go deep and narrow. I know it's contra to what people think. It's like, I need to spread myself everywhere, try and find them. No, one area, dominate it. The third thing is people don't learn how to do it properly, right? This is all a system. This is all a process. I teach people this every single day. It's nothing complex. It's nothing difficult. You just do things over and over and over again with consistency, with discipline. You're going to get results. The fourth thing is positioning yourself. I would say one of the biggest unsaid secrets in property, right, is people who go out with the incorrect positioning and don't have the right authority when they're speaking to sellers or agents. And I think a lot of that is driven by the social media generations. Like, we've got to be out there, like, blasting on social media. I actually think that depositions you quite a lot. So we've got to position ourselves correctly. Final things, strategy versus market. Make sure you are buying the right thing for the current market, right? My YouTube channel, I always talk about what's going on with the market. Where are we in the cycle? What's going on with, prices, interest rates, all that sort of stuff. Don't select the wrong strategy for where we are right now. You'll be underwater very quickly. Scattergun approach, very similar to that focus. Using the wrong figures. When I work with my mentees, we spend, I would say, 80% of our time breaking down deals that they're finding and understanding or making sure the figures are right to actually appraise these deals. Second to last, I would say, is the over leverage. Again, I think the industry is really bad at pushing people to over leverage. And when I say over leverage, I don't necessarily mean on a percentage, I mean on a serviceability basis. So a lot of people struggling right now because they have over leveraged. They keep on leveraging. Now interest rates gone up. They're choking on the debt. We need high cash flow, right? We can leverage more with high cash flow. And finally, no risk mitigation. Again, make sure you've got at least 2 exits from any deal, right? They don't always work in sort of plan A. So make sure you have a plan B. So for example, the one we're buying at the moment, that one that was on the market for 275, we're buying it for 200, and we plan on turning it super HMO on top and retail at the bottom. I know, as a risk mitigation, that the previous lease on that building was 25,000 a year, right? That's for the last 10 years on 25,000 a year. So if you value that at a 10% yield, right, it values the building at 250. So I know I should be able to get another company to come in and take it at 25 grand a year, which would value the building at 250 without doing anything to it, right? It's pristine inside. But we're buying it 200. So we've got mitigation built in there just in case it doesn't work, turning into an HMO, which we have to go in that case, because it's in Wales, through the full planning for. So always have multiple exits. Okay. Biggest thing, look at yourself as a deal maker, right? You are, as a property professional, your job is to find and structure these deals. So find the deal, structure them, and then find the resources to buy them. All the rest of it, delegate it out. Don't abdicate it, delegate it out. But most of your money is going to be created by you being that deal maker, okay? We can be employees at the bottom of the wealth spectrum. Self-employed is just a glorified employee who has to work 10 times as hard for half the money. Business owner is stressful because most business owners are actually just on the hamster wheel of running their businesses. Business investors, it's quite a low yielding thing, right? So if we've got millions of pounds, we can stick it into business with a 5, 6, 7% return, fine. But if we don't have millions of pounds, we have to think differently. Property entrepreneur, at the top of that pile, we're creating equity and cash flow out of thin air. That's how I want you to think, okay? Know yourself, be realistic, get help if you can. Over the next 90 days, you need to be looking at knowledge, picking an area, picking a strategy, build your machine, use Property Filter. I couldn't recommend it enough. Source those properties, position yourself correctly, and start learning how to structure deals. This is how I work. I work with my clients through several steps, all of which start with a C. So I have a membership site called the Property Unicorn Club, which has got community and content. I have an 8-week group coaching program called the Deal Blitz. I have a year-long mentorship program called Property Cash Flow Accelerator, and I also joint venture with many people as well to buy more stuff. But I'm not selling you anything today. I have a blueprint that I teach everybody within these. So if you're interested in reaching out to find more about it, please let me know. But I said I'm not selling you anything today. The only thing I would like to talk to you about today, which I have been given permission to, is I've just written a book on property unicorns, right, which goes into all of the detail, goes into all of the strategies, right, and puts a lot more of meat on the bones of what I've just spoken about. So who here would be interested in getting a copy of this book? Amazing. So it's not actually released or printed yet. So we're a little bit early for that. It's with the publishers at the moment. So right now I've got a pre-register link that I'm going to give you to get a copy of this book. Okay, it's called Property Unicorns. And I'm going to go through all of those strategies. Now, very simply, this book, you're going to get it for free, right? All you've got to do is pay £4.97 postage and packaging, right? And I'll put that in the post for you as a physical book. I think a physical book is better than a PDF. I know somebody's Ray said send me the PDF. Physical book, I want you to read it. I want you to have it on your bookcase. I'll give it to you for free. You just got to cover the postage and packaging. Somebody said signed. Interesting. It goes through a fulfillment house, so I can't sign it. But if you want to send me a message, right, I can send you a signed one. I just don't know how quickly it'll get to you. So if you want to pre-register, so when I launch it, I'm doing a run of 200, I think it is. You guys will get them first. Go to bit.ly/property-unicorns. Okay, and you can put your name in. So when I launch it, I'll tell you when I launch it, and you'll get exclusive access to that launch to make sure you get copies before I put it out to everybody else who's not on the pre-register list. So go on over to bit.ly/property-unicorns, and I'm sure the Property Filter team can send that link out to you afterwards as well, if you need to. Put it on the chat. Yeah, I can put it on the chat, actually. That's a good idea. bit.ly/property-unicorns. Let's see if that, oh no, sorry. I probably, give me a sec. I probably need to actually get the web address. There you go. If I take that, there we go. There's the link. Right, go and click that. That should work. You're going to get some freebies when I launch this. Okay, so when you get your free copy, you're going to get a few extras. So there's going to be a few little digital programs in there for you. So bonus one is the Property Unicorn case studies. So I go through everything I talked about today and more, and I go through more detail with those case studies. So you can kind of look over it in your own time and see how I've structured them. So I've got 7 or 8 case studies in there. So that's a valuable little ad for you. I'm also going to give you a training, which is kind of mirroring the training I've given you today. You guys have seen the training, but it's basically the same slide deck, which you can get through. You'll get a copy of that training. I'm also going to give you access to my property cash flow. Trained, coached, and mentored. Oh, somebody's got it on. Property cash flow Kickstarter digital program. Right, I used to sell this for £97. It's kind of some foundations of getting into property, and I go through all of the property unicorn strategies that I teach. Okay, you'll get access to that for free. And I've never done this before, so this is a total first off. I'm going to give you access to the Property Unicorn Bootcamp, which will be probably in July. I've not put a date on it yet. Full day training in the RAF Club in Piccadilly. Well, I'll go through in more detail all of these strategies and how you can get started with Property Unicorns. Who'd be interested in doing a full day's training for free just by getting a free copy of the book and paying £4.97 for the postage packaging? Do we think that's a good deal? Do we think that's a no-brainer? Come on, give me a no-brainer if we think that's a no-brainer. Should be an absolute no-brainer for everybody. £4.97 when it launches, and you get all of that. Lovely. Get your name in. Right, I'd be delighted to see you at sometime in July after we've launched and got all that scheduled. That's it for me. There's crazy cast iron guarantee. Here we go. If you get the book and you think it's a load of rubbish, I'll give you the £4.97 back, if that helps. And I promise to do that. Just send me proof of purchase. I'm not in it for £4.97 postage and packaging team. I'm in it for creating a community and helping people actually do property properly, the right way, in more grown-up methods. All right. So I'm quite passionate about this. I've been doing this for a long time. There we go. There's the link. Go and grab it. And I would love to see you in July. That's it. Any questions? Any questions for me, team?
Yeah, Rob, awesome. Thanks so much. Thank you so much for taking us through all of this, and also the generous gift at the end. So yeah, some Paul says the gift that keeps on giving, I think that's quite appropriate. So yeah,
there you go. I'll post it again just in case it got lost. But yes, oh no, sorry, I posted that to Jane. Jane, I just posted you. That looks like favoritism. I'm sorry, Jane. How did I manage to post that to you directly? And
you can go everyone.
There we go. That's the one. There we go. Again, right. If you've got any questions, I know we're an hour and a half in now. I apologize for the power cut, team. It's nothing like doing stuff live for issues.
Yeah.
If you've got any questions,
right.
I'm happy to take them. But if we're done, we're done.
And thank you for taking the questions as you went as well. So I think it was all good. Guys, if you have, we'll take a couple of questions. If you've got some, now is the time. I really like, I'm a man of frameworks, I really like the, like drawing things, and this is the kind of stuff I live and breathe all the time. So I speak your language, and really, really enjoy it as well today. So thanks a lot for that. I really liked how you went on the explaining things around the tax, because people don't tend to think about these things. Indeed, there's a lot of opportunity around there. I think it's really cool, some of the stuff you do. I know in your kind of boutique, education company is like taking people through deals, and the deal clinics you run. I've heard a lot of good stuff around it. So we had a bit of a preview today, which is great. So don't seem like we have more questions. Let's have a look.
Ray says, "I know tax better than the accountants." It's probably true, actually, Ray. I'm not going to lie. When I bought that one last year, they didn't even apply MDR. Not the accountants, solicitors. By the way, it's a really good point.
Yeah,
never trust your professionals. I like to know more than them, because generally they, unless you're paying huge rates, they're just a bit lazy, right? So they don't know. So you've got to steer them in the right direction sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks a lot. Do you have any sort of closing sentiment for us today?
My closing sentiments really are this. I've been around for a long time doing this. I find it really easy myself to get distracted by shiny pennies. There's always something that you look on social media and you go, I really want to be doing that. Or we go on, webinar like this, you go, that sounds awesome. My biggest takeaway, right, is I think that property is without doubt the best way of building wealth and generational and legacy wealth out of it, for the ability of how we can structure stuff and how we can leverage against it, right? There are no other assets that allow us to do that. But we have to look at it with a longer term mindset. It's not a get rich quick thing. And the people who talk about get rich quick, is you're going to get burnt in that. So everybody can do this, right? Following a system, following a process. But my keys it's nothing to do with strategies or tactics, it's to do with discipline and consistency. And focus. And for me, that's why I think I'm quite successful, coming from the military and having that sort of military mindset, having that ability just to follow a system. And if you do follow the system, you will get results. I can never guarantee. Some people find things straight away. Some people it takes longer, right? But if you do it long enough, you will find these things and get going. And that's my takeaway. So if anybody's serious about doing it, right, you can do it. You just need to follow a process.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, exactly. And it's a little and often, and sticking to the same thing long enough, it's yeah, I totally agree with you. Rob, thanks so much. That was amazing, like really valuable for all of us. So, and thank you, all of you, for joining us on today's Deal Final Corner. Do make sure you register to get a free copy of Rob's book. I think that's really generous of him, especially after the great session we had today. So yeah, again, Rob, thanks a lot. That was, for your time and everything. That was really awesome. In the meantime, log on to your Property Filter account and check out the deal blueprint, where you can define your goldmine area, engage with motivated sellers, assess properties in seconds, like Rob has shown us today, load your pipeline and make deals, have an endless supply of deals, build an unlimited deal flow of motivated sellers, join the top 1% and become a high achiever deal finder. I hope you enjoyed today's Deal Final Corner like I did. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks so much.
Rob, cheers, guys. Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you.